What are you?
Just a man who knows what he sees. Let's go.
The $6 million man is now worth $15 million, but it cost him everything. He jumped off buildings, crashed cars, and broke bones to become TV's biggest star. Behind the scenes, his body was falling apart. His heart nearly killed him in 2003. His wife, Farrah Fawcett, left him for his best friend, and doctors had to drain fluid from his knees every single week. But at 86, he's doing something nobody expected. While other actors his age are retired, Majors is still filming stunts for a new sci-fi movie. You would be shocked to look at him now. Lee Majors was born into heartbreak before he ever took his first breath in 1939. His father died in a steel mill accident 5 months before he was born. His mother, left alone during the toughest years of post-Depression America, tried to raise him on her own while working as a nurse. But when Lee was just 17 months old, she was hit and killed by a drunk driver while on her way to work. Orphaned as a baby, he was adopted by his uncle and aunt and taken to Kentucky. For years, Lee had no idea about any of this. He thought his adoptive parents were his real ones. But one day, as a teenager, he was poking around their attic during a rainy afternoon when he found old newspaper clippings about his real parents' deaths. That moment changed everything. He didn't spiral. He made a promise to himself. He swore he'd never let his adoptive parents regret taking him in. That promise became the fuel behind his obsession with success. At Middlesboro High School, he poured all that emotion into sports. He became a local legend, so talented in football that years later the school named their field after him. His speed and drive caught the attention of college scouts, and in 1957, he landed a football scholarship to Indiana University. But just 2 years later, things took a hard turn. He got into a serious fraternity fight and was expelled. That one mistake cost him everything: his scholarship, his future in big-time college football. Still, he didn't quit. He transferred to Eastern Kentucky University to try again. But in his very first game, disaster struck. A back injury left him paralyzed from the waist down for 2 weeks. Doctors feared the worst. Lee feared the end. But somehow, he started walking again, then running, and eventually made a full recovery. Though his football career was over for good, the NFL scouts who once saw him as a rising star had to walk away. With football gone, Lee turned to something new: acting. He started doing small plays at a theater in Danville while finishing his degree. By 1962, he had a diploma in hand and a choice to make. He could teach, or he could chase a dream. He chose the dream and moved to Los Angeles. To make ends meet, he took a job as a park recreation director in North Hollywood. And that's where his life took another sharp turn. He met Dick Clayton, a big-name agent who once represented James Dean. Clayton saw something in him, got him into acting classes, and within a year, Lee was in his first film. Just a quick flashback role, but it was the start. While all this was happening, his personal life was quietly falling apart. He'd married young and had a son, Lee Jr., in 1962. But the pressure of a new city, no money, and an uncertain future became too much. His wife eventually left him and took their son back to Kentucky. It crushed him, but he convinced himself it was better that way. At least his son was surrounded by family. Still, the pain lingered. He never forgot that moment at the airport, watching his son leave, too young to know he might not be coming back. Around this time, Harvey Lee Yerry decided that if he was going to become someone in Hollywood, he needed a name that fit. He dropped Harvey and kept Lee, then added Majors in honor of his football hero Johnny Majors. It wasn't just about sounding like a star, it was a way of holding on to the one thing that had defined him before acting. And then, fate stepped in again. He met Rock Hudson, who had once visited Kentucky, and remembered the young man with movie star looks. Hudson kept his word and helped Lee get a foothold in Hollywood. He got him an agent, Dick Clayton, the same man who once guided James Dean. He set up acting lessons, study time at MGM, and even helped boost his confidence before he packed his bags for Hollywood with his wife and kid. Most people didn't know it at the time, but Hudson's quiet help was the reason Majors even had a shot. Once he landed the role of Heath Barkley in The Big Valley, everything started moving fast. The fame came, the fans came, and unfortunately, so did the ego. At first, Barbara Stanwyck, a seasoned Hollywood legend, tried to support him. But Majors, still raw and a little too confident, didn't always act with grace. One moment in particular caused real damage. He insulted an extra on set, unaware she was Sherry Smothers, sister of the famous Smothers brothers. Stanwyck didn't stay quiet. She called him out in front of everyone and reminded him what it meant to earn stardom. She wasn't just defending someone, she was protecting the respect and professionalism the industry demanded. Their feud boiled over into arguments about billing, respect, and power. Eventually, Majors was forced to apologize, but something had already broken. Stanwyck had been willing to guide him, just as Hudson had. But he'd lost that chance. Around the same time, Majors was offered something huge, the lead in Midnight Cowboy. He was set to play Joe Buck, a lost soul in New York City trying to survive. It could have changed everything for him. But the Big Valley got renewed, and just like that, the opportunity vanished. The role went to Jon Voight instead, who ended up with an Oscar nomination and a place in film history. It's strange to think how one decision, one contract, one scheduling twist can alter an entire career. Had Majors taken that role, who knows how different his legacy would be? Still, he pushed forward. In 1969, he starred in The Ballad of Andy Crocker, a groundbreaking TV movie about a Vietnam veteran returning to a world that had moved on without him. It wasn't just acting, it was raw emotion. His character came home to find betrayal, loss, and no place to belong. Surrounded by a surprising cast, including Marvin Gaye and Jimmy Dean, Majors delivered something deeper than fans had seen before. It was a bold story to tell in 1969, while the war was still happening, but it showed his range and his potential beyond just looking good on camera. As the years went on, something unexpected happened between Majors and Stanwyck. The fire cooled. Time passed. And somewhere along the way, the tension turned to gratitude. Stanwyck had seen something in him early on. She'd been harsh because she cared. While other actors stayed on good terms with her throughout the Big Valley, Majors had to earn it the hard way. And he did. He eventually called her his mentor, even his best friend. It was a quiet admission that he'd grown up, and that he finally understood what she was trying to teach him back then. When Lee Majors stepped into the world of the Virginian in 1970, it was more than just a role. It was a fresh start for a fading show. The series had been rebranded as The Men from Shiloh, with a bold new style that borrowed heavily from spaghetti westerns. Roy Tate, the character Majors played, fit right into this gritty new vision. Everything changed. Sets, costumes, even the theme music, which was now composed by the legendary Ennio Morricone. Audiences took notice. Ratings shot up, and suddenly, a show that had been slipping was back in the top 20. But even as things picked up, the 9th season became its last. Despite the stylish reboot, The show was a victim of the infamous rural purge, a network move that wiped many country-themed programs off prime time. Right after that, Majors wasn't left hanging. He jumped into another series, Owen Marshall, Counselor at Law. It was a legal drama, and Majors played Jess Brandon, the younger partner to Arthur Hill's more experienced attorney. The network brought him in, hoping his star power would attract viewers, especially since his name had already boosted ratings once before. But for Majors, it wasn't exactly a dream role. Courtrooms and neckties weren't his thing. He missed action, the outdoors, something with movement. He once joked that the only workout he got was walking back and forth inside a soundstage courtroom. Still, the show had its moments. Big guest stars like Martin Sheen, John Travolta, and even a young Mark Hamill popped in. And behind the scenes, the show ended up playing a key role in his personal life too. Majors arranged for Farrah Fawcett, who would later become his wife, to appear on a few episodes. But then came the offer that could have changed everything. The $6 million man. When the idea first came to him in 1973, he almost said no. The project was originally titled Cyborg, and the script made it sound too cheesy. The concept of a superhuman guy doing stunts every 5 minutes reminded him too much of the campy Batman series from the 60s, and he wanted no part of that kind of show. Even after he agreed to do the first TV movie, he was uneasy. There was even a version where Dusty Springfield sang a theme song. Majors hated that vibe. He fought hard to make the character feel more human, more grounded. No blood, no killing, just a strong man doing what was right. Eventually, producers listened. The show took on a serious tone, and Majors helped shape it into something viewers could really connect with. The launch of The $6 Million Man wasn't just a single moment, it was a process. The first movie aired in March 1973 and crushed the competition in the ratings. That surprise success led to 2 more movies later that year, both with a more James Bond-style flair. But by the time it turned into a full weekly series in 1974, the tone shifted again. Under new leadership, the show leaned into Majors' vision: less glam, more grit. He played Steve Austin as a reluctant hero, someone who didn't like spying or violence, but did what he had to do. The audience loved it. What made this all even more intense was that Majors didn't just star in The $6 Million Man. At the same time, he was still doing Owen Marshall. For a while, he was headlining 2 network shows at once, which was almost unheard of. ABC didn't want to let him go from the legal drama, but they also didn't want to lose the momentum of the Bionic Man storyline. So they worked out a crazy schedule, where Majors was filming scenes for both shows, often on the same day, running between sound stages like a man with real bionic legs. He even lived on the studio lot for a while just to keep up. That double duty didn't last forever. David Soul eventually stepped in to replace him on Owen Marshall. But the experience left Majors drained. Still, it showed how much faith the network had in him. And he proved them right. The risk, the pressure, the endless hours, it all helped turn Lee Majors into a household name. Behind the scenes, Lee Majors wasn't just satisfied with being the face of the franchise. In 1975, he decided to try something new: directing. He picked an episode that mixed football with espionage, and even brought in real NFL stars like Larry Csonka and Dick Butkus to guest star. The episode was wild, filmed on uneven, overgrown fields that made the action look chaotic and gritty. Reviews were mixed. Some called it one of the best episodes, others the weirdest. But Majors proved he could handle more than just acting. Then came 1977. The show was still popular, but Majors refused to show up on set. Everyone thought it was about money, but it wasn't. He was fighting for something bigger. He wanted his production company, named after his then-wife Farrah Fawcett, to get a piece of the action. Universal didn't like that and sued him. That lawsuit shook the industry. In the end, Majors got what he wanted, but the fight may have taken a toll on the show. Ratings slipped. The end was coming. What happened next changed TV history. Lee Majors was tired of action scenes filled only with men. He asked the producers why his character never had a romantic storyline. That question led to the creation of Jaime Summers, played by Lindsay Wagner. She was meant to die after just 2 episodes, but viewers loved her. They couldn't let her go. So, the writers came up with a twist. She didn't die, she was just recovering. That twist gave birth to The Bionic Woman, and shockingly, her show beat The $6 Million Man in ratings. Wagner even made history by winning an Emmy, something no sci-fi actor had done before. But success came with tension. Majors and Wagner may have played a power couple on screen, but off-screen they barely spoke. The reason? Pay. Wagner made far less money than Majors, even though she carried her own hit show. She later said the gap was huge, around $60,000. Back then, she had little power to fight it. And when The Bionic Woman moved to another network, the split between the 2 shows became final. There were no more crossovers, no more team-ups. Only years later, long after both shows had ended, did Majors and Wagner finally start to get along again. Lee Majors was already a rising star when he spotted Farrah Fawcett's picture in his agent's office. She had just arrived in Hollywood, young, beautiful, and completely unknown. Without even meeting her, Majors called the girl's boarding house where she was staying and left a bold message saying he'd pick her up at 8. Farrah thought he was rude, but she still said yes. Their first date was awkward, barely any words spoken, and Farrah ended up sick from her drink. But the next day, Lee sent her 13 yellow roses. That changed everything. They didn't just fall in love. They became the couple everyone talked about. By the mid-70s, they were on top of the world. Lee was the face of the $6 Million Man, and Farrah had exploded into superstardom with Charlie's Angels. Her face was on posters everywhere, her hairstyle copied across the globe. But behind the glamour, the cracks were already forming. Their careers pulled them in different directions, and they barely saw each other. Even with all their fame, they never had time to start a family. Then came 1979, and everything fell apart. While Lee was filming in Canada, he asked his old friend Ryan O'Neal to check in on Farrah. That one request changed everything. Ryan and Farrah got close, too close. What started as a friendly favor turned into a love story that didn't include Lee. When he found out, he was shattered. He confronted Ryan, begged him to back off, but Ryan didn't. "I really love her," Ryan said. And just like that, a friendship was destroyed. Lee tried to keep it together. He called Ryan's house. He hung up. He called again. When he finally got through, he told Ryan to stay away. But it was too late. Farrah had already drifted into Ryan's life, and out of Lee's. Still, even as their marriage unraveled, Lee and Farrah spoke every day on the phone. There was heartbreak, but also a strange kind of loyalty that never fully died. During their separation, Lee was worn down by the spotlight and the silence at home. He was working brutal hours, trying to keep his career afloat, while Farrah was off chasing new roles and a new relationship. Lee later admitted they only saw each other for 2 weeks in one whole year. It wasn't just the affair that killed their marriage. It was the distance, the pressure, and the timing. But there was something else, something softer beneath all the hurt. After the divorce, when it came time to divide everything, They argued over their massive house. The judge was ready to decide who would get it. But Lee made a quiet choice. He gave it to her. No fight, no conditions, just gave it away. "She's a nice lady, and I love her very much," he said outside the restaurant where they had dinner that night. It wasn't bitterness that stayed with him. It was love. Lee Majors wasn't just another television tough guy. He lived the part. When he stepped into the role of Colt Seavers in The Fall Guy, he wasn't just acting as a stuntman, he was one. Even though he had already made a name for himself as Steve Austin in The $6 Million Man, Lee wasn't done testing his body. He wanted realism, so he did most of his own stunts. That meant jumping off rooftops, crashing cars, and getting thrown around like a rag doll. But the years didn't let those hits slide. By the time he was in his 60s, his knees were in constant pain. His doctor had to drain fluid from them every week. He even joked it was like getting his oil changed. It may have been funny, but the toll was real. He couldn't even enjoy a round of golf or a simple horseback ride without hurting. The show itself was different. The Fall Guy wasn't just about stunts. It was about a guy who worked in Hollywood as a stuntman by day and chased criminals by night to make ends meet. Lee's character, Colt, used the same skills on the streets that he used on movie sets, only now it was life or death. The show mixed action and humor, and Lee performed the theme song himself. It even made sly jokes about his past with Farrah Fawcett, who had once been the love of his life. But behind all that fun was punishing work. The trucks used in the show were reinforced to survive the abuse, but Lee didn't have that luxury. His body paid the price. By the end of the series in 1986, he wasn't the same. The constant pain made him rethink everything. He couldn't keep doing roles that pushed his body to the edge. Sometimes he wished he really was the Bionic Man, faster, stronger, pain-free. But Lee wasn't made of steel and wires. He was flesh and blood, and every injury added up. Still, the fans hadn't forgotten him. In 1987, he came back to the screen as Steve Austin in The Return of the $6 Million Man and The Bionic Woman. It was a hit, bringing back the original cast and even introducing Lee's real-life son as a new agent. That one success led to 2 more movies, one of which gave fans the moment they had waited years for. Steve Austin finally married Jaime Summers. These reunion movies gave Lee a second wind in his career without demanding the dangerous stunts that had wrecked his joints. While all this was happening on screen, Lee's real life was just as dramatic. In 1984, he met Karen Velez, a model who had just become a Playboy centerfold. Their romance was fast, and soon they had a daughter, Nikki. By 1990, they had twin boys, Dane and Trey. For a while, things seemed stable. Lee even stepped back from acting to spend more time with his kids. But that peace didn't last. The marriage ended in 1994, quietly and without the tabloid chaos that had followed his split with Farrah Fawcett. This time, they kept things calm for the kids. But it was another chapter closed in his personal life. Just when things started looking calm again, life threw another curve. In 2003, Lee faced something even the $6 Million Man couldn't escape: a failing heart. What was supposed to be a simple checkup turned into a nightmare. Doctors found serious blockages. He needed open-heart surgery. During the operation, he began to bleed out, and doctors had to scramble to save his life. His new wife, Faith, stayed by his side through it all. After surviving the scare, Lee changed his life. Healthier food, regular workouts, and a slower pace became his new normal. Faith wasn't just a caretaker, she was the love he had been searching for. They met in 1995, started dating, and finally married in 2002 on the coast of Italy. It wasn't easy to pull off the wedding. Paperwork delays almost canceled it, but they made it happen. In 2008, they even renewed their vows in Hawaii. By 2019, Lee joked that their long marriage was a record in Hollywood. After everything he'd been through, broken bones, broken marriages, and a nearly broken heart, he finally found someone who stuck by him. His kids grew up in different worlds. His oldest son, Lee II, followed him into acting. His daughter Nikki tried Hollywood for a bit, but chose a quiet life in real estate and motherhood. The twins went their own way. Dane into music, Trey into surfboard shaping. None of them became full-time actors, but they each carried a bit of their father's bold spirit. Trey, especially, embraced adventure, traveling the world and building surfboards by hand in San Diego. Lee Majors' second act in Hollywood wasn't loud. It was smart. After years of being known as the classic tough guy, he quietly stepped back into the spotlight with a new plan. He didn't chase big roles. Instead, he picked just the right moments. In 2005, he surprised everyone by showing up on Will and Grace as a straight-laced character stuck in the show's wild chaos. It wasn't just funny. It proved he could do more than action. Then, in 2007, he flipped the script again with a powerful role on Cold Case, playing a haunted ex-military man with secrets that refused to die. Critics loved it. The next year, he joined According to Jim, and suddenly, people saw him as funny, laid back, and more human than ever. Behind the scenes, he and Jim Belushi hit it off, forming a real friendship that outlasted the show. But the real turning point came with Ash vs. Evil Dead between 2016 and 2018. Playing Brock Williams, he wasn't just acting. He was doing his own stunts at nearly 80 years old. The younger cast watched him in awe, learning from a legend who refused to slow down. By 2024, Lee Majors was back in a way no one expected. When Ryan Gosling starred in the reboot of The Fall Guy, fans were buzzing about one thing: Majors' surprise cameo. It wasn't just a nod to the past. It became a full-on event. Before filming, he made a friendly bet with director David Leitch about where his scene would end up. Majors was sure it would land in the third act. Leitch thought otherwise. It turned into a running joke on set, with Majors even popping into editing sessions to push for his version. But this wasn't just a casual walk-on. He came prepared with a 12-page backstory for his character and rewrote some of the lines himself, lines that made the final cut. Gosling couldn't stop praising him, saying Majors worked harder than most actors half his age. Despite all this success, there was one part of Majors' life that never stopped haunting him: Farrah Fawcett. They were once one of Hollywood's golden couples, but time, fame, and distance had changed everything. In 2009, after Farrah passed away, Majors finally opened up. He said she wasn't the same girl he had married. Fame had changed her, and so had their time apart. Though he stayed silent publicly, privately, he still cared. He visited her in the hospital 3 times without letting the press know. He sent her flowers every week during her treatment, always signed simply Lee. They spoke for the last time 2 weeks before she died. That final phone call lasted just over 20 minutes, but after years of silence, it gave them the closure they both needed. Even now, Majors refuses to fade into the background. At 86, he's starring in a new sci-fi thriller called 2037, set to release in July 2025. He plays a rogue military commander trying to save the world from an alien invasion. The film was shot mostly in Houston on a modest budget, but with a big vision. It also features one of Tom Sizemore's final performances, and even the director's 5-year-old daughter in a lead role. Majors didn't just act. He was an executive producer, mentor, and stuntman all rolled into one. Refusing to rely on computer effects, he insisted on doing things the old-school way. The director described the project as a bridge between generations, and at the center of it all was Majors, proving once again that real stars don't fade. They evolve.